Unironically, memes aside, what is it that the katana does best, better than some other swords perhaps? Here's my take on it. All right, first off, there are a few things I'd like to show physically to kind of visually underscore some of the points I'll be making. So I have to apologize for mistakes in my form, which I can only imagine there must be plenty, because I have never been professionally trained in the use of a katana. I'm just going by what I've been mimicking from observation. I have casually practiced some of the techniques I've seen, but said there's probably a lot wrong with what I'm doing. Do feel free to point those mistakes out if you're experienced in Kenjutsu. I'm definitely willing to learn. If you're the impatient type who always wants people to get to the point right away, this is it, what I just did. So when people talk about how fast the katana is, they often mistakenly think that this is a sword that moves faster than other kinds of sword. And that's not really true, or at least not necessarily. It depends on what you compare it to, of course. You know, a much larger, heavier sword is generally going to be slower, and the comparatively short blade, at least compared to other kinds of swords that are typically used with two hands, that's part of it. But the quickness is really more about how quickly you can deploy it. And that's where it distinguishes itself from other swords. In an everyday life situation where you just go about your business, hopefully never needing it, but if you do, you really need it, this is not exactly quickly available. This is pretty awkward to draw now. Unfortunately, I don't have a proper sword belt for this, and simply sticking it through a regular belt in the pants is not ideal. There are different ways of positioning it, different angles, different heights, etc. You can figure out your personal favorite. But however you do it, this is never quite as quick and convenient. Just clearing such a long blade and getting it ready for action just takes a little bit more. Right? It's just not quite that simple. Sheathing it without looking, I really wouldn't want to do here. With a katana, you use your finger to kind of guide it in. You have two sharp edges. It's not a good idea here. So you have to look at it in order to sheath it generally. And the entire philosophy in Kenjutsu is, you know, as you do, if you get attacked, you just dispatch the target. As you sheath it, you keep an eye on your surrounding, you stay ready in case you have to fight again. There are ways to respond to surprise attacks and ambushes and whatnot. One is just drawing the sword into the attacker's face, pretty much with a pommel first. You can do that with a katana as well, and that's kind of the thing. Like anything you can do here, you can do with a katana as well. For example, loosely carrying the sword in hand and using it while it's still in the scabbard. Things like that, you can do that with a katana as well. And this is not really a great way to carry it. But wearing a katana in a scabbard through a sash is really quite convenient. And the way the scabbard is shaped and finished too helps with that. It's lacquered, so it's nice and smooth. It slides in and out of the sash or belt or whatever quite easily. And so if you have to transition and carry it in hand for a moment or put it down or something and then stick it through again, it's very quick and simple. A rapier with a long blade, on the other hand, is pretty much the exact opposite. It's extremely cumbersome to draw, and it has been criticized for that even back in the day. It's really not quick and easy to deploy. That's why I always think that for self-defense in an alley of some medieval or Renaissance town, a messer is just better. Not that they generally allowed the carry of swords in most towns, in a lot of places, but that aside, you could almost wear this instead of a wakizashi and just pretend it's normal. Like, hey, it's just cultural cross-pollination, you know? For ease of carry, you could tweak this some more. For one, this is an awfully long handle, right? Sticks out substantially and gets a little bit more in the way than a shorter handle would. Personally, I would rather have a longer blade and a shorter handle, or just have everything be a little bit shorter just for ease of carry. But of course, you have plenty of options here. You can have a shorter katana or longer wakizashi, whatever. There's a bunch of different possibilities, of course. One thing also that stands out about this, and that's, I suppose, an artifact of the reproduction market as it is currently, you can always expect to get a good scabbard with a katana, pretty much. Whereas with European swords, quite often you don't get a scabbard at all, and other times it sucks, you know. Whereas even a cheap katana, of course, is nowhere near as good in terms of quality, but usually even the cheap ones have an all right scabbard that's usable. So there is a lot of focus on this because the scabbard is just part of how you use it, how you fight with it. Obviously, it's always the case. You know, scabbard was used with European swords, is important, etc. That's how you carry it. But I feel like there's more emphasis on this being a part of what's going on during combat, during an ambush, etc. This is just what you use, right? And it works very well for the intended purpose. So in my opinion, the focus has been kind of on the wrong thing. Everybody always obsesses over cutting power. Which cuts better, this or that? Is it a katana? Is it a shamshir? Is it a messer? Is it a longsword? Whatever. That all depends on how you shape the individual blade. You know, the steel quality, of course, matters. And you can always push cutting performance, usually at the expense of something else. You know, typically a sword that cuts better tends not to be quite as nimble, because how do you make it cut better? By giving it a bit more mass, you know, making the blade wider, for example, things like that. There's just always something you can do, but it comes at a cost. And there are so many ways in which you can counterbalance things. You can make a wildly effective cutter in the form of a katana, a longsword, a kriegsmesser, a saber, a whatever, right? There are plenty of ways, but this is really what that's all about, in my opinion. Feel free to let me know what you think. Am I missing something? Am I wildly off? I don't think so, because this is literally part of the traditional swordsmanship, the way it's taught in Japan still. Either way, let me know what you think. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and take care, folks.